I'll admit I've had my doubts about UConn, but they squashed a lot of them by squashing South Carolina. Maybe the most impressive performance by any women's basketball team this season in the college basketball year. Because UConn had lost some high profile matchups, right? They lost to Notre Dame. They lost to USC. They lost to Tennessee. They did not lose to South Carolina, Dawn Staley and company. Quite the opposite. It showed why they had 3 number 1 recruits, right? Paige Beckers didn't even have an explosive scoring performance. She played well. She distributed the ball well, but Sarah Strong made her presence felt across the board. And AZ Fudd maybe had her best performance in a UConn uniform. She just has such a smooth game, such a smooth shooting stroke, really a tremendous prospect, having come back from injury, and hopefully she can stay healthy. On the other side of things, South Carolina doesn't have those players who take over a game. They've got a bunch of really good players, but Mylasia Fulwiley may be the best candidate to do so. She doesn't even start for them. And this whole idea of them coming at you in waves is great in practice, but sometimes you need that one big wave. You need that tsunami. And they got hit by one in the form of UConn. So when you look at that game all around, South Carolina's now lost 2 games, in a week's time? 2 games in a week's time, which is very much, unprecedented in recent times. They also had their 71-game home winning streak broken by UConn in this one. And that's just part of the, way it breaks for them when you're looking at South Carolina and how dominant a program they've been in recent times, because UConn is the measuring stick, but South Carolina has really been the most recent powerhouse. Connecticut hasn't won since, I think, 2016. But Gino Auriemma, there's got to be a part of him that's motivated by that. There's got to be a part of him that looks at and licks his chops a little bit and says, all right, I'm going to show you. I'm going to spin back around and let you know what's going on. Because he actually called it before the game. He told ESPN's College Game Day that he thought they would be a tremendous tournament team. And then they came out and sent a message. And they got some more contributions than just the players I mentioned. Like El Alfi had maybe her best performance in a UConn uniform as well. But Sarah Strong, 16 points, 13 boards. She's just so tremendously talented at her size, that the way she's able to do a myriad of things. Paige had 12, 10, and 7. Only shot 3 of 12 from the floor. But then AZ Fudd was 28 points, 6 of 10 from 3. Meanwhile, you look at South Carolina, and they only had one player in their starting lineup in double figures, and that was 10 points for Pow Pow. Raven Johnson had 0 points, a starting guard, no points. 17 from Joyce Edwards off the bench, the freshman. But Wiley had 11. I mean, it may be time to switch the script and start going through them if you're Dawn Staley. And I know that's not typically the way she runs things, but I don't think South Carolina's starting unit has the front end talent to win it all without some sort of change in the dynamics and the way that they're playing. Meanwhile, I did have my doubts about UConn being soft. I mean, honestly, that's what I thought. They were soft in some of these games. But to come out and punch South Carolina in the mouth like that runs opposite of that thought process. So the most impressive performance this year, when you factor in score and opponent and location, to win by 68, 70, 80, almost 30 point, 29-point win on the road, that is super duper impressive. That's not an expected outcome whatsoever. I don't think people would be shocked to know that UConn would win this game. I think South Carolina was obviously the clear favorite going in, but I don't believe anybody expected it to go down the way it did. And now you're looking at a lot of parity heading into March, because USC just beat UCLA. And UCLA, was the number 1 team, had beaten South Carolina, maybe still is the number 1 team, but nonetheless, Juju Watkins with a monster performance in that game. LSU only has 1 loss, that being to South Carolina. Texas has been excellent. They beat South Carolina. Notre Dame has the wins that they have over UConn and USC, and their terrific guard play. I mean, there's a lot of teams bunched up there, I think, that can beat one another on any given day. So one of the problems for women's college basketball in the past was that the dominant programs were too dominant, I believe. The Tennessee's and the UConns, and maybe even the South Carolinas to a certain degree. That in part has changed over the last couple of years here. We've seen new programs, new players emerge. And I think a game like today speaks to what March could look like, because UConn can get got. I mean, there's no question about that. We've all seen it happen thrice, right? Like it's not a rare or um an occurrence that hasn't transpired. Now we've seen South Carolina lose 3 times on the season when they were on all these massive winning streaks. Notre Dame has been great all year, but they've got a couple of losses. UCLA just lost to USC, as I just mentioned. All of these teams feel like they're about on the same tier, and that's not even getting to the next tier. That's just referencing the top 7 teams in the country before you get to the rest, who knows, could pull an upset, in that month of madness. But I think you're starting to see the hype build there a little bit for March and what it could look like. The NCAA had actually released the seedings, the early seedings for the tournament, not actual tournament seedings, but what they would look like if it were to take place today. The top 16 teams, number 1 was UCLA, 2 South Carolina, 3 Texas, 4 Notre Dame, 5 USC, 6 LSU, 7 UConn, 8 NC State, 9 TCU, 10 Duke, 11 North Carolina, 12 Kansas State, 13 Kentucky, 14 Ohio State, 15 Oklahoma, 16 Tennessee. But UConn looked a lot better than number 7 in this one. And again, they have several players that can beat you. They really even haven't had an explosive season from Paige Beckers basically at all. Sarah Strong and AZ Fudd, to me, are on the same level that she is, if not better, or if not going to be better. Which, if they can get all of them clicking simultaneously, that puts Gino Auriemma's squad in a good position, a very strong position the rest of the season, where they can flush some of those high-profile losses down the toilet and maybe get that elusive next national championship, since it's been a minute.